coaches look for attitude, will, mindset. Attitude, will, mindset. That's what coaches want.
What's good, Cowboys Nation? Welcome into one of my favorite parts of draft season, and that's the first edition of the On the Clock draft series with none other than one of the best NFL draft analysts doing it. Foots the King, my brother. What's good, fam?
Man, Sky, this is gonna be one of those ones because we said pre-show that we want to dig in for the fans because we know what's going on, you know, free agency wise and lack thereof. But we know the Cowboys are capable of having a 2016 type of draft, a 2020 type of
22.
draft. At 22, and there are guys in this class, Sky, that I'm excited to talk to you about because Cowboys fans, we're gonna be okay. We're gonna be okay.
Foots is the ultimate optimist, man, and I love it because we kind of need some of that positivity from time. I know damn well I'm not as optimistic as you are, Foots, but I ain't gonna fight you on it because I need to invite that positivity in my life. Why would I fight it all the time? But
you know what it is with me, Sky. And we was talking about this pre-show. I am draft guy, so this is how I got like after the draft 2016. I started my work, and I've been coaching around that time. Is when I started coaching it. Before that time, so I'm always like, hey, if we can find out what this player can do for our team, like versus like even more so free agency, those guys are good, but like when you hit on a young stud, it's different, Sky. So
yeah, I think when we look at the team building aspect of it, there are areas of positivity you can take out of it because the Cowboys do a good job of drafting. But it's my mind always goes to the big picture, and I get frustrated because I do understand there are other layers of team building that we just haven't been as good as drafting, and I think it's kind of hindered the Cowboys' big picture. But one thing that they do well, and they've done it for over the last decade, is they have drafted well. Now, 2023, we still TBD. It wasn't a great draft last year. They absolutely have to get something from that class, and they have to get something from this class here, Foots. And we're talking about linebackers today because the last remaining guy from the 2018 class, LVE, he retired, after the Cowboys released him, which was expected, right? He had another neck injury-prone guy, and they released him, and he penned out his retirement. And, I said this on Twitter. I hate to see players leave the game this way. And if there was a memory for me for LVE, it was 2018. That season was unbelievable. Unfortunately, he was never able to capture it, and they never quite were able to get ahead of replacing him. And here we are right now trying to fill the void of middle linebacker, which honestly probably should have been filled a few years ago. But LVE's out. The Cowboys are likely going to be looking towards the draft for the future, Foots. And we got some guys we're going to want to discuss. But kind of your thoughts on LVE as he heads into retirement.
Man, you talk about 2018, that's kind of would be the impact that you would need from one of these young linebackers that you would want to have. Because if people remember, LVE had a smoking 2018.
He came out guns blazing his rookie year.
Came out guns blazing. You know what the interesting thing about LVE was, Sky? That he was faster than I thought and played like he was a big body that can move.
He was technically a physical freak, technically at 6'4", 260, and he can run like 4'5" or something, or 4'6". That's
4'5" and with not stiff hips. I remember the Eagles game. I mean, he blew plays up all over the field, had the interception, was spot dropping well, was extremely physical. And so, it's sad because I think the one thing that sucks is that injuries really took his career away.
Yeah, he never was the same player, and he never became that downhill guy that we needed. I always thought he kind of was more of a will that they kind of threw in middle linebacker because of his size, right? He had the prototypical size from the old school backer, but I think his play was more just let him run, let him be free, use that agility and that speed and size that he had before the injury. But then the injury kind of took a lot of that away from him. He still had it up here, right? Like we always talk about LV, could see it. He just wasn't getting there with the same physical presence on a consistent basis.
Hey, Sky, how about this? Michael Gallup was in that class. Connor Williams was in that class.
Cheeto,
Cheeto, Dorrance, like,
yeah,
and like, I didn't even put that class in the, the 2016 or the 2020 or the
that was a
2022
solid
class.
class for
But
sure.
that was a solid class. Like, so
but no one's here anymore from it.
That's fair.
You know?
But you did get good production, especially from
yeah.
Dorrance and LVE. It's just interesting how well the Cowboys have done when they hit.
Yeah, and they actually at one point knocked that draft class, I think, out the park. With LVE, Schultz, Schultz, Cheeto. You had a lot of starters out of that class. No superstars, but a lot of starters. And obviously LVE was one of them. And here's the problem though with it: they kept relying on LVE coming back. You know what I mean? Instead of just cutting their losses and replacing them, and having that future middle linebacker. So now the Cowboys are in this position right now where they had to go hit free agency, right? And they hit free agency and they go out and they sign Eric Kendricks. And that, to me, Eric Kendricks with this defense, Mike Zimmer, I don't know if there's a better match made in heaven in free agency for a player and a team. I kind of been pounding the table to get him here so he can help this linebacker room. You're talking about a veteran that can come in here, take command of the room, knows the defense, and it'll fast track, I think, the front seven, not just that room. But we didn't get a chance to talk about Eric Kendricks together here. What's your thoughts? I know you've been talking about it on Twitter, but what's your thoughts on Eric Kendricks joining the team?
He reminds me a lot of how Sean Lee used to play. As far as his instincts trump all. He's not really a big guy. But when he sees it, it's like the play is over. He runs to the football well still. The interesting thing about Kendricks to me is that Brandon Staley has been known during his duration with the Chargers as quote unquote a defensive guy.
Yeah, he had bad defenses there.
But he had bad defenses. Yeah. So that was going to be my point. It was like he had bad defenses. And so with him, I think he's more of a D coordinator than a head coach. Anyway. But with all of that talent, he still had bad defenses. But then you get Kendricks back with the Mike Zimmer, who I think the Cowboys have a better roster, even with what we've lost, than what the Chargers had. And so you bring him in with Zimmer. Could this be a situation where you think of a guy like London Fletcher, where he goes to Washington and his career extends for like 4 more years? Because you can't take him off the field. He's all over the field. Like, I'll be honest with you. When I watched this film, when I really watched, like, not highlights, when I really watched, I really said to myself, like, I won't say it's quite as good as the Gilmore signing from last year, but it's like maybe a step below as far as Kendricks can still play, bro.
I think that's a good one. It's so funny because both of the years they were all pro. Was 2019. Gilmore won the MVP, or I'm sorry, Defensive Player of the Year, and Kendricks was an All-Pro at the position under who? Mike Zimmer. So it's kind of equivalent when you really think about it. Both 1 years, both 32 years old, both at positions that needed that veteran in that room, in my opinion, at that position. And Kendricks, like you said, you put on a film, he still can play. Like, don't get it twisted. And we broke down the numbers on Kendricks. He was a top 20 in average depth per tackle. He was better than a lot of guys that we like, and Nick Boltons and Patrick Queens and Roquan Smiths and Demario Davises. These are top guys, and he still played the run better than those guys. Now, the pass defense is a different story because they had a terrible secondary, but he can move around, man. And I think he's going to actually help out this room tremendously. When you look at a Damone Clark and DeMarvion Overshown, those are your really only other 2 linebackers that you got right now. And we know about Demo. As much as I love Demo, man, and I don't doubt that this dude is going to eventually come back and be really good for the Cowboys. But with the ACL injury, I have some questions. Like, we just don't know how is he going to come back from that. Do you count on him? And you were just talking about Damone Clark, who was on Jonathan Hankins' podcast. He'll be going into year 3. He just had his first full year as a starter. I think he played out of position. He's been thrown kind of in the fire with these injuries, but he's got some experience under him. But these are 2 extremely young linebackers that I think absolutely needed a guy like Eric Kendricks in that room to make them better and the Cowboys better.
Man, I'll tell you this. When I watched Kendricks, and this is no lie, first I watched your breakdown on him, which was awesome. This was you were on it early, so flowers to Sky. But then I said, when I'm watching, I'm like, man, I don't have to draft linebacker in the first 3 rounds. I know we're about to talk linebacker.
Oh
but
yeah, and there's some
I
of
don't.
them I like in them first 3 rounds.
It's some of my life. But Sky, you know that the cavalry and I think even the Joneses, there may be other positions that they value higher than backer. And if they do with Demo, and they shouldn't, but if they do with Demo Kendricks, a healthy Demo Kendricks, and even not giving up on Damone Clark because he didn't play how we wanted him to.
You wanted something here.
But you can't throw him away. He's still on the roster.
No. I think Clark absolutely has talent that you can keep him there at will to be at the very least LB3. You need at least 4 to 5 linebackers in this league, man. You can't just roll out 2 linebackers and a safety.
I think the thing, not to cut you off, Scott, but I think the thing that for people to remember is the room looks better now. To me, it does.
Oh yeah, Eric Kendricks by himself, I think is better than what the Cowboys had last year for sure. But you were saying something that the way they're moving, and this is kind of how they operate, but even more so now, the way they're moving, it does feel like they're saying, well, okay, Mozzie, time to step up. Okay, we do got DeMarvin Overshown. We're good here. We do got Damone Clark. It's very possible they may not draft one early, but Foots, I would hate to miss out on one of these dudes if they fall to you. You're in your top 5, especially when Eric Kendricks is not a long-term solution, and the draft is so you can get long-term solutions.
Yeah, no, and if you ask me, if I have you know how I feel about some of these backers. Me and you are on the same page, and I can't wait to get to it.
Let's get to them. Let's talk about your honorable mention first before we get to the top 5. You have what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You got 6 guys here on this honorable mention list. A few of them we talked about before, but I kind of want you just to briefly go ahead down this list here and touch on some of the guys you think deserve a little bit more airtime.
Cedric Gray, man. I see a will. I see a guy who can run to the football, look really impressive instinctually at the Senior Bowl. There were times on film at North Carolina where I said, well, how does he handle trash? Because that's what I'm looking for in my backer, Sky. I'm just going to be honest with you. That's what I'm rating a lot.
So yours is how do they handle trash?
How do they handle trash?
Mine's is instincts this year. That's
absolutely, Sky. And if the instincts are so good, like Sean Lee, when healthy, he didn't have to deal with trash because his instincts were so good. He would step through trash.
Yeah.
But there are going to be backers who, they do better, maybe playing a run, taking on that outside shoulder, playing force, knocking those guards back. There's a guy on this list who did it consistently, who also played with hands well. He's not going to let tackles and guards get on him at the next levels, but we'll get to him later. So Cedric Gray can run. Trevor Wallace, and I'll put a star by him. You know how I feel about him in chat. You know about how I feel about him. Edufan, man, to me, he helped himself the most at the combine. Ran well, tested well, moved well, and the film is so. The film, I went back and watched. There were times where he wasn't around the ball enough for me, but he was a really good blitzer. I liked him coming off the edge as well. Washington did some cool things with him. Darius Masai. That UCLA defense is fun.
He's a fun player.
And he's a fun player. You talking about a guy that will step in a crack and hit you. Like if there's a crack and he sees it, he's going to try to put his shoulder pads on you. They're really good at the East-West Shrine Bowl, Sky. Was all over the field there. He's not as athletically gifted as some of these other guys, but I really think he can play. Tyrus Knight, UTEP guy, so maybe later in the draft, 6th, 7th round. If he's sitting there, 5th, 6th round, if he's sitting there, traits are off the charts. And then Tommy Eichenberg. Tommy Eichenberg is your classic, and don't kill me, y'all. He's your classic Josie Jewell.
Where you going?
You're
Who was the other kid that came out of Ohio State? I think he plays for the Saints now.
Oh, you're talking about I know exactly, and he actually plays well.
Pretty decent, yeah.
Yeah,
I think he was more athletic than Tommy Eichenberg, though.
Tommy is more. You getting the name up, Sky?
Yeah, I got you.
All these prospects run together. Tommy is more of a thumper, but the one thing I'll say about him is he's rarely out of position. Like when I'm watching him in his run fit,
Pete Warner.
Pete Warner.
He was more athletic though, I think.
Yeah, but the white try-hard linebacker. Yeah. But he's not. He's a really good football player. Yeah. Like he's gonna be where he's supposed to be. You could put him on teams. I got him more fifth, but I mean he's a good player that will come in and help your room. Like your room won't be dependent. And he's one of those guys who's played a lot of big time football, Sky, that can come in right away if you have an injury, something like that.
We are doing a Survivor Madness challenge, very different from your normal March Madness brackets, but you can still do. But I want y'all to rock with A to Z this year in doing a Survivor challenge all the way through the tournament. The winner gets a huge cash prize. Here's all you got to do. Sign up for our challenge on Splash with our link, splashsports.com/ATOZ. The entry fee, $10, man, just $10. And the entire pot goes to the winner of the Survivor Madness challenge. This is what you do. You pick one college basketball team to win each day of the tournament. If your team wins, you advance. But you can only pick the one team. It's just like any other Survivor challenge. The last survivor gets the money. If there's a tie, we'll split the pot. The more people that play, the more money you can win. Right now, but it can be up to $5,000+ or more, because I'm pretty sure if we get a gang of people joining, they'll open up that amount of participants to play. So sign up, splashsports.com/ATOZ. Available for Cowboy fans across the country, minus a few select states, a handful of select states. Well, you talk about big time football. I want to talk about your first guy, number 5 on your list. Let me do the voice here. Number 5. We got number 5 on Foot's top 5 linebackers in the NFL draft. Jeremiah Trotter Jr. If you've been around football for a long time, you know his daddy, Jeremiah Trotter, played for the Eagles, drafted by Brian Broaddus. Talks about it a lot. Fantastic hit there. And he was a standout player at Clemson. Uber productive. 2 seasons. The last 2 seasons, he had 28 tackles for loss, 10 pass breakups, 4 picks, 2 forced fumbles. I mean, when you look at that type of production, that screams, hey, one of the top linebackers, right? And then 2023 came around, Foots, and a couple people had some, things that made them sour a little bit. One was his size that everybody talked about, and the other was his mobility. And I think some people kind of took a step back, but that doesn't mean he doesn't have good film, and that doesn't mean he can't be a good player. But I do wonder where you stand on him. You have him as a top 5 guy, though.
I do, and you hit it, Sky. You kind of be so prepared, man. It's like Jordan and Pippen, man. We're not playing games. So, Sky, the truth about Trotter is he's a former 4-star recruit. Played a lot of big time football. The issue that I have with Trotter, I'm not gonna lie, is that sometimes he plays a little too wild. And it's like he's in such a hurry to get places. When there's times he'll run himself out of a play. There's times where he's blitzing and he's the instincts. It's like the instincts are in reverse. He's playing too fast. And then, like you said, the mobility. I don't like him. You would think that a guy who can move as well as he moves would be good in coverage. I didn't really like him in coverage, and I don't know if that was an instinctual thing, Sky. But there was times I just saw him lost when I'm like, oh, why is this guy running in the middle of the field? It was just the defense that was called, and that's what we don't know. But I'm watching. I'm like, hey, you're the hook the flat player. Like, why aren't you in the hook the flat? The ball swinging, quick game, and you're nowhere to be found. So those are some of the things that I saw in his film that kind of gave me cause to pause. If you go watch the Florida State game, you watch him versus Trey Benson, there's times he's just out of position, man. And so that kind of is what scared me with him, especially like you said in 2023.
And I wonder if 2023, a lot of it had to do with a hamstring injury he was dealing with. Because I like his instincts. If he knows where he's going in the pass coverage department, I mean, dude is 4 picks, 10 pass breakups. I mean, he knows where to go, right? And obviously he had that famous pick 6 early in the season in 2023. But I just wonder if the stiffness, because a lot of people don't like how he moved this year, if the stiffness is going to, scare some people away. But what do you like about him that has him in the top 5 for you?
And see the picks in the pass breakups, I think those were against quarterbacks. When you watch him against a quarterback that knew what he was looking at, it was kind of iffy.
He can kind of move him with his eyes.
Exactly.
Okay.
What I do like him as is when he's playing under control is as a blitzer. 6 sacks. He gets skinny through the hole and he can run, but he can run playing forward. So that's kind of where and then unfortunately, Sky, the size, we saw this with Nakobe Dean. And
that's crazy. I was thinking about him when I saw 6'2", 228. I'm like, is this going to be Nakobe Dean again? Now, Nakobe had the medicals.
He had the medicals.
Yeah.
Nakobe had the medicals, and Nakobe was protected by a really good defense at Georgia. I think that Trotter has the ability to be a better player in the league than Dean, because I think the problem with Dean is you have a team like Philly who didn't have a plan for him because he's not a Mike. You can't put him; he's too small to play Mike. And so
I don't think Trotter's a Mike.
Yeah, and I don't have Trotter as a Mike either, Sky. So the team that drafts Trotter has to have a definite plan with the player. And I think that if you do that, then you'll be in good shape. Let me ask you this. What would you do with Trotter on this defense, Sky?
He would have to play next to whoever on Mike. And I forgot that this is something that I wanted to bring up too, is Eric Kendricks had spoke with, I think it was Nick Eatman on .com. And Nick said, hey, why did you choose here over the San Francisco 49ers? And Kendricks said basically this.
Ultimately, I wanted the opportunity to play Mike and bet on myself. Especially at this point in my career, I have a lot left to prove. I feel great, moving great. So to be able to play Mike with this defense and the guys that we have on this defense, it was an opportunity I couldn't pass, and I'm very happy with the decision.
I think the Niners wanted him to play next to Fred Warner, and he said, "No, I still got this to play Mike. I feel great. Wow. I know this defense. I want to play. I want to play the Mike backer position." So to me, I'm like, I wonder if the next guy we do bring in here is a guy that they decide to plug next to him, or is it a guy that they say, okay, for year one, we're going to put him next to Kendricks, and then he's going to slide right in and be that Mike linebacker. I think that's something to think about. So for Trotter, for me, he's definitely your will backer that's going to play next to an Eric Kendricks. And this is no knock on Trotter. I was actually, a lot of people aren't this high on Trotter, but I wonder if he would beat out Demo in year one.
And so I don't know if you remember Trent Simpson
or
last
Clark.
Year. Yeah.
I remember Trent. So we talked about Trent. Yeah.
We talked about Trent. Same type of player. I had a higher grade probably on Trent, and Baltimore took that kind of arc with him. They, come, learn from Queen, learn from Roquan Smith, because when it comes to Trent, good blitzer, but now when we stick you in the middle of our defense, it's a different ball game. Size issues, you see what I'm saying? Trying to get on the field, and so it's just different. So that's probably the career arc you would have to take with a guy like Trotter, because you're not. I'm gonna say Kendricks is your Mike day one. Now there are guys 100%. On the list that could come in all seriousness, and could play weak or could play strong, and still play day one early, but Trotter would not.
He would be. I think he'd have more competition. I think a couple of these dudes on your top 5 would actually have some competition with whether it be Demo or Damone Clark. Now, once we start getting to that top 3, that's where I think those guys might have the edge, in my opinion, just because they're both physically and mentally, I think, better than Trotter. And the next guy on this list, who I actually like a lot, again, another dude that, we talked about Troy Fats behind the scenes, another dude that we talked about for Senior Bowl week to look out for, and that's Maurice Liufau out of Notre Dame, goes 6'2", 234. I believe he was at the combine. I don't think he ran everything. He did. He ran like a 4.6, I think, at the combine. So he did, I think, do all the drills. But we talked about him prior to the Senior Bowl, prior to the combine, and I still have the same sentiment I had then. You see him flash those instincts that get you excited about his development. And like all these prospects, including Trotter, and none of these guys are finished products, and coaching is crucial. I think between Trotter and Liufau, these kids have some traits you like, but I feel like they got to be coached up. But you got both of them in your top 5, and you got Liufau above Trotter, which I think is interesting. But your thoughts on Liufau and why he's so high in the draft for you?
So the one thing that I like about Maris is this.
Maris, my bad.
Yeah, it's all good, man. Remember what we said about these names,
These names
Sky?
is crazy this year.
We
bro.
said these names are gonna get you. He does a great job of triggering, and that's what I'm looking for.
I
in my
love
backers.
it. Click trigger, yeah.
And so I don't want to always have to blitz you for you to see it and go. I want you to see it and go, because the problem is you playing a Dak Prescott where it's like, oh, okay, if you guys start walking up, well, Dak's going to get in the right call and he's just going to throw the ball behind your ear. You know, guys that are great against the blitz, quarterbacks that are great against the blitz, you see what I'm saying? You got it. So linebackers who can see it and play with great instincts, I think that's one thing that Fred Warner does so well. He sees it and he goes. One of the things, if you watch the Navy tape, if you watch the Ohio State tape, he will scrape over the top and run to the football from his true depth. If you can continuously do that, you're going to play for Mike Zimmer, because that's disciplined football.
Yeah.
Now I'm not playing with your alignment. Now I'm not giving the offense keys. I think he does that well, and he plays every snap like it's his last. That's the thing that I love. The USC game was a perfect example. I know you watched a lot of Marshawn Lloyd. I'm pretty sure you saw that hair flying around everywhere.
He's
running.
Yeah.
He's flying to the football, Sky. And so that's to me
what it is. The word that I think about when we're talking about him is downhill vision. Like you gotta have. And we talked about click trigger ability. I'm on instincts. I think he has the instincts and the click trigger ability. He's just probably not as consistent as you would like. Again, young player.
Yeah.
He can't. He's from the islands, right? That's another thing that I like about him, man. Is that he's a guy that's shown that he can adapt. He talked about how he came from the islands, went up there to South Bend, which is Indiana, ain't Hawaii, right? And he struggled with that, but he said, "Hey, this is going to make me better," and it absolutely did make him better. Not only did he deal with the culture shock of moving there, but he had to deal with an injury as well. But I mean, he's got heavy hands that we talked about before.
The hand usage,
I mean, that's the first thing that popped out to me is like, is this dude a defensive end? Because the way he uses his hands, it looks very defensive end-ish, but he's not. He wants the smoke, man. And he has that. You call it the click trigger. I call it that as well. But that downhill vision to see it go and want and deal with the smoke. Now here's the other side of that to me from what I saw from him is that if they do get in on him, he don't have the frame right now, I think, to deal with these big boys.
Little light. So,
and it's not like he's 234, but I just think the frame is strange. Kind of like Demo, honestly.
Can I say this, guy? When I saw him, Payton, Cedric, and all of them standing, like I do this when I'm watching these guys the same. But I just want to say, how big is he really? I don't know if it was the hair. He looked like the biggest linebacker out there at the Senior Bowl. And at the Senior Bowl, he really in drill work, and it was one play, like the closing ability. Charles, who covers it? It's Daniel Jeremiah
Charles Davis.
Charles Davis. They were covering the Senior Bowl. Who's this closing on one of the quarterbacks?
Oh, he can close.
Man,
yeah,
like I can coach the rest, but that closing ability is, and the thing about it is, Sky, it's first I'm gonna check in my drop, then I'm gonna close, and that's good linebacker play to me.
No, you're absolutely right. Can we talk about closing, right? I got to talk about this next guy because actually these next two to me.
Yeah, let's go.
You talk about closing. I'm biased. This next one's probably my favorite backer in the draft, but I know he comes with a lot of baggage due to the injuries, man. But how I feel about Payton Wilson, man. I would love to have this guy on this roster. I think he's a true Mike linebacker once he's ready, but if he were to come to the Cowboys, he'd likely be a will, and I think he can do that fantastically too. I just think Foots, and I know who your number one guy is. I just feel like this guy is the total package. It's just the damn injuries, and I'm willing to look over it, but I know a lot of people are not. But anyway, number 3 on your list, Payton Wilson.
Scott. The only reason I'm not willing to look over is because we just retired
I know.
a linebacker. and we can't this year. And you know what's so crazy, bro? I'm king optimism, so I'm never like just shoot a guy down, but it's just so extensive. And then we're talking about shoulders, and we're talking about the knee and the knee. He was fine last year, but
I had this conversation, good Twitter conversation, by the way. Shouts out to the person I was having this conversation with. I think the reason why I can't compare this to LVE is because LVE had chronic neck injuries coming out of college. His medicals were bad at the coming out, right? Whereas Payton Wilson's medicals checked off fine. It was the history, right? Like, he hasn't had an injury in 2 years. So he's been injury free and playing very well over the last 2 years. And his most severe injuries have been ACLs. In fact, I'm not sure if this is public or not, but I've been told he doesn't even have an ACL on one of his knees. So
okay,
which
that happens. Yeah,
I do wonder if that does put a bit of a time frame. I'm not really sure. The person I was having this conversation with, I remember DeJuan Blair, and now I'm going to basketball, and you watch basketball. DeJuan Blair, former Pitt power forward, went to San Antonio Spurs. He lost his ACLs in high school, but he was a fantastic player in college, got drafted, ended up, I think, second round, ended up having a long career, or good career, I should say, as a professional basketball player. So it's possible to not have an ACL.
And they run way more than football players as far as over the span of a season. Yeah.
Right. So if it's the knee, and he hasn't had any issues over the last 2 years, whatever he got done obviously has worked. If it was a neck, though, bro, if it was a back, I wouldn't even think twice about it, because, like you said, I got PTSD, But I don't know, man. Maybe it's the optimism. Maybe we switched here. Maybe I'm just more optimistic about it because I'm being biased with his play. And I know a lot of fans are probably like, well, Sky, he was just talking about LVE and his injury situation. The only reason why I don't compare, I don't think it's apples to apples, is because necks, bro. Like, that's something that is quite literally a ticking time bomb.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. The cool thing about him is you'll see a play versus Drake May, and, he's bending the edge and catching the edge and sacking the quarterback. Then you'll see in the next series, he's off ball. And it's just you're not, like, medicals and off the field, that doesn't matter. They're doing deep dive. There was some concerns early on in his career in college, but that'll never concern Dallas ever. So that's not an issue. But medical's fine. He probably is the best prospect, in linebacker prospect in this class. So you're not wrong there, Sky. Closing ability, finish. You see the play at the range when he's playing Notre Dame. He walks down a receiver, and then you go to the combine and you do what you did there. The hips look fluid, right? Like, I thought his workout was outstanding. It's just that part of it, and that's not a dampen it. So let's actually talk about the player.
Yeah,
I have him as a Jack Campbell comp. Big, strapping backer.
I like him better.
And
Jack went like 12. What would Jack go, 16 or something?
But it's funny because Jack actually, I like Jack. I was high on Jack.
You were.
And he helped Detroit this year and played a role for those guys. And it wasn't,
sure.
He played a role. And so I think that, I think he's a better prospect for sure. Like,
just those injuries though.
In other drafts, the problem with it is too, and this draft is so loaded. 2024 class is loaded. Sky, like, this is a historic draft. What teams do with these players, we don't know, but this is a historic draft. So in other drafts, he's a first round pick, even with this stuff. But because you have the receiver influx, I'm now hearing at least 6 quarterbacks are going to go in the first round. With Denver needing a quarterback, Minnesota's probably going to trade in. So, and then obviously the tackle influx. So you have receiver and tackle that are so good. Linebackers that would normally be first round players like Wilson are going to be sitting around maybe in the second, maybe in the third.
If he's in the third, man, I know a lot of people hate when you throw around Sean Lee, but I just think the instincts, right? That the instincts are there. He's way more athletic than Sean, but I do think he has those instincts. And I think he is, man, he is.
I would probably push back. Sean's instincts were rare coming from Penn State.
Fair.
That's linebacker.
They were all time. They were all. They were no doubt about it. They were all time. But I'm basically trying to give him a compliment in the sense that they're that good, in my opinion. They're really high. But I just think he can be a guy that can play opposite of Kendricks right now, right, and be productive as hell. And then when it's time for him to go in the middle, he's there. Because if you listen to him, you could tell he's a smart, intelligent player. If you never even watched him play, just listen to him. You can tell he's smart and he's intelligent. Then go watch him. You say, oh, this makes sense. And I know some people are like, oh man, he doesn't deal with, he doesn't deal with the trash or whatever, right? Man, this dude was a wrestler. This dude, if you go listen to his press conference, he said, man, if I get my hands on you, I'm taking you down. This guy he's dealt with phone booth wrestling before. I really don't see I feel like he checks all the boxes is what I'm saying. Except
and honestly, he'll probably be the Cowboys pick. Like, that's just how it works. And the funny thing about it is, if you go to North Carolina State, you're like, oh, who else is on that defense that is going to be nobody. But you come to Dallas Cowboys, it's like, oh, Micah Parsons on that defense. Oh, Deron Bland is on. Oh, Trayvon. So guess what? Hey, Payton, you only have to do one thing
right
here. You just run to the football. Hey, we'll use you on this blitz package every 4 downs. You're going to run in the game. You're just going to go chase the quarterback down. And that'll be what you do year one. And he can have a lot of production doing that because he is so smart. He plays the game the right way. He killed the combine interviews, like you said. So that's like, I watched his interviews. That's checked off the box. The whiteboard won't be an issue. But what was he asked to do at North Carolina State? Well,
every damn thing.
I was about to say, I just said he was pass rushing. I just said he was blitzing. I just said he was playing Mike. So you put him in this with this brain trust, with this defense. Yeah, man. So that's to your point, though. That's honestly to your point that I think that he would be fine.
No, that's an excellent observation in the sense, if you're asking a guy, if you're putting so much on his plate and now you're saying, oh, you only got to do this, you only got to worry about this, and you put him in the room with Eric Kendricks. And here's my only problem with this whole entire draft in general. We don't know who the staff is going to be in 2025. But let's just hypothetically say, Cowboys do some good things.
Play well. I think they will.
Yeah, and Zimmer comes back, McCarthy comes back, right? And you got some continuity, And then you have a guy in Payton Wilson who learned from Kendricks, who was an all-pro under Zimmer, and he's now in this scheme for the second year in a row at middle linebacker, where I think he can drop right now at middle linebacker and be fine. So I just, man, and again, I like to not get attached anymore to any of these players. I'm not saying I'm attached because we may not draft any of these dudes, But this guy right here, I would love to see with a star on his helmet, because now I think the one thing we've been missing for a long time, with all due respect to LVE and Jalen Smith and whoever the hell was at that second level for the last 10 years, is a playmaker. Yeah. Like Wilson can be a playmaker. And you have that in the front. You have that in the secondary. You've got that, you've got Micah Parsons and you got Diggs and Bland. You haven't had a guy in that middle making plays, and I think he can do it.
Yeah, man. And the thing is, once Eric Kendricks is off the roster, he could step in and be your Mike,
right?
Year 2, because those positions are interchangeable. And he's a guy that you want coached. You talk about coaching. He's a guy that you want coached by Mike Zimmer. No nonsense. Hey, this is how it's done. This is how it's going to be done. And I think that he's a fit with Mike Zimmer for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. This next guy that we're going to talk about, he seems to be the consensus number one for a lot of people in linebacker Edgerrin Cooper out of Texas A&M. And it's very easy to get enamored with his athleticism on the field. But this is another smart backer, in my opinion, too. Agile backer. Would he have been a fit with DQ? Who knows? DQ was a little odd at the end of his tenure. But I think as a again, will linebacker, again, we're talking a lot of will linebacker potential here. Man, you want to talk about flying the hell around. Edgerrin Cooper foots would be he make plays too. So,
Yeah, it's kind of like crazy. You could really copy and paste some of what you said
about Payton.
Payton, but for Edgerrin, always around the ball. The Alabama tape is outstanding. The Auburn cut up was good. He picks the fumble up, takes it to the crib. One thing about Edgerrin that he's a will for me, because there are times where he gets stuck. And I don't know if I will want him in the middle of my defense making the calls.
You can't get stuck there.
Yeah, I don't know if I want him. Now, he runs well.
Yes, he does.
Like very well, and his play speed is probably faster than his 40 time, which is something that I went on a rant today about Keon Coleman. Just play. There's a difference between play speed and 40 time. He plays very fast, but he's a guy that I will want clean. However, when you talk about a blitzer and a guy who can just knife through and make plays, this is what he does, man. Like,
man, those double A gaps.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh man, you talking about that double A stuff, and now you talking about. Now you have to deal with Kendricks, Cooper, and Micah. Good luck to your guards, man. You know what I mean? Because that's the thing about it. I don't think that we'll see Micah playing so much end on third downs because Zimmer will say, you know what? He's better than half the guards and the centers in this league. Let's let him blitz the A. And let's let him make plays there. So I think those will be fun as well. And I think that if you brought a guy like Cooper in,
he a dog.
I mean, I'm gonna tell you who he comps to before he fell off, because this shout out to you.
I know what you about to say.
You know, I was about to he comps to Devin White.
I knew you was about to say Devin White, bro.
That's sad we know each other like this, guy. That's crazy. This was LSU Devin White.
We didn't even talk about it. I know he about to say Devin White because he damn, that's a great comp. You know, this was before he fell off, Devin White. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's not a knock on, no jabs here. You know what I mean?
Nah, hey, dog. Hey, now hold on, wait a minute now. Fuck the Eagles. You can jab all you want.
Hey, but in all seriousness, Sky, I think that, when it comes to this guy, man, you stick him in his defense, you'll be fine. He's a will for me. Like I said, I don't see the Mike potential, but I think that he'll be fine.
On Cooper or Wilson being, linebacker one, but two people I respect a whole lot don't have either of them as their linebacker one right now. Dane Brugler, respect Dane a whole lot, man. But Foots the King, my guy, and Foots the King been banging on the table. Junior Colson is the best linebacker in this draft, Foots. Tell the people why you believe that.
Man, you watch the Alabama tape. You watch the Washington tape. You kind of know Ohio State tape. It's all there for me. I like how he plays at the point of attack. Never on the ground. There are people who will poke holes in his game, and that's fine. For me, the size matters, and he's a big, imposing backer who could play Mike. He was the green dot guy on that Michigan defense, which is a lot of what Zimmer does do. Mm-hmm. Now, how does he fit here, Sky?
Please,
Dallas is gonna run out 3 linebackers.
Are they though?
I think so, Sky, because Zimmer has been thrown out 3 linebackers.
I mean,
I don't see. Let me say this.
I mean, look,
I don't
back
see.
in the day,
I don't
yes.
see them. Yes, I don't see them playing a safety at linebacker this year or in the box.
No. You won't see a whole lot of that. Zimmer traditionally is not run as much 3 safety looks as Dan Quinn has done, but the league seems to be heavy 4-2-5 nickel, right? It just seems to be heavy nickel type of defense. So it's just that's why I say explain how do we get, because Colson does feel like a middle linebacker.
He does, but I'm telling you,
Kendricks
man,
is here though.
Kendricks is here. I think
can he play well, Foots?
I think one of the things that can he play well.
I saw your break. So let me say this. I saw your breakdown, right? Well, I saw it a while ago, but I said, let me refresh up on this breakdown because he's one of the first guys you were breaking down. And what I love about when you break down these guys, you talk about, okay, this is what I didn't like, right?
Right.
The eye candy was getting them. And I've said this a lot on my show. I give these linebackers coming out of college over the last 5 years or so a lot of grace with the eye candy because it's so hard to deal with, man. And in college game, that's all it is now. I mean, seriously, that's all it is. Now, you get to the NFL, they're starting to catch up to that a little bit. And you said it. Sometimes he'll take the cheese, and he'll lose it with his eyes.
Yeah.
But other than that, he does diagnose well normally. So when it's not a whole bunch of this eye candy going on, he does feel like a guy that can put that green dot on, get everybody situated, see it find it, go, make plays, be strong, come downhill. There was a lot more positive in your breakdown than negative when you talked about Colson.
What? So he really reminds me. Remember Terrell Edmonds when he first came out?
Yep, you brought him up too, yeah.
Because
That's a
the
big
length.
boy, though. Edmonds
That's what I'm saying. I'm telling you, when you see Colson compared to other backers, he doesn't move as well as LVE coming out, but he stands that way. And I think he lost weight to go to the combine. I think he checked in at maybe 238, 239, 240-ish, but he's going to play at about 245. But he carries that well. And so to me, and then his story, I don't know if you know, Sky, him and his family being from Haiti and having that background and how he got into football, the whole nine. Like, those are the type of football players that I want on this roster. The Michigan Mile, all the things that Harbaugh would ask him to do, how Harbaugh recruited him, like what Harbaugh did to get him there. And then when he got there, how hard Harbaugh was on him. And Harbaugh, and Colson said this, Harbaugh was always trying to break him. Always, like specifically him. And he wouldn't break. And like, I don't want people in my building who is like, we got to hold their hand. Are they tough? Are they worried about competition? Hey, guess what? If I'm drafting you and Eric Kendricks is here, go learn, be like Eric Kendricks, be gritty. And when it's your number, when your number's called, be ready to go. Not I'm drafting you here. And so you think you're the guy right away. Like, I want blue collar guys back in this building. Especially if we're trying to get these guys ready day one, because injuries happen. What did Eric Kendricks play? He played 13 games last year. There's a chance
he got hurt. He got hurt last year. Yeah.
There's a chance that he might not be ready. And people saying, "Well, Foots, why would you draft him this high?" Because he would be your future.
Eric Kendricks he finished the season. He's healthy. He just missed some games at the beginning of the season for sure.
Right. And there are people say, "Well," and that goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Well, why would you take a backer if you have Eric Kendricks? Well, listen, Kendricks isn't in your long term.
No.
Future. A guy like this could be in the anchor of your defense, and not the anchor. The anchor is your trenches.
Of your middle. Of your middle. Second level, yeah.
For a long time. Now, of course, here we go. Michigan players. We got to stop this. It's a myth. Aiden Hutchinson is a great player. There's countless other really good Michigan players in the NFL.
Yeah.
Some of that stuff is, Nico Collins. People forget Nico Collins played at Michigan. Oh, what happens when you put him with a good coach and one of your guys, Bobby Slowick's guy? Oh, now Nico and a good quarterback, Nico Collins looked like the next up and coming great receiver.
He should have been with Michael Gallup. That was Michael Gallup supposed to be Nico Collins, but that didn't happen.
So, everybody in the community knows how I feel about Junior Colson. I think he comes in right away. He brings a physical presence. Great blitzer. You talk about a double A gap guy. He not trying to go around you, cross you up. He running through guards over and over. Like, this is what I want people to understand about Michigan under Harbaugh. They played a certain type of football.
They have an identity that's not just an identity for a season. That's not just that is how he built his program in Michigan, is to be as physical as they were. Yeah.
You're not going to have a problem with this guy ducking smoke. You're going to see collisions in the hole. And I think that's what Cowboys fans have been missing since really LVE. We've been missing it. That's why we go crazy over that one clip over DeMarvin Overshown, because wow, linebackers still can be physical and close a gap. Yeah, you can.
We do. I ain't gonna lie to you. And me personally, I can't speak for Cowboys Nation, but I am easily moved with these prospects at the linebacker position because they look like linebackers, right? Yeah. You know what I mean? They're doing linebacker things. They're not playing patty cake and waiting around and being hesitant and ducking smoke. And no. These guys are getting downhill. Well, the guys that we're discussing, and there were some in free agency as well. So yeah, if you are able to do that, sign me up. Now, when you get here, understand, yes, you may be better than what we were seeing over, in the years past in regards to getting downhill, but is that better than your competition? Is that better than your division? Is that better than your conference or the league? That's another discussion. But we talked about this behind the scenes. Coaching is huge. It absolutely matters. I fully believe the coaching here, the players that grew up playing that style, also teaching said players, young guys, that's the reason why these guys play the way they play. Zimmer and Paul Gunther are not here to play around with some patty cake ass linebackers. It's not happening.
You did it. You talked about it.
Junior Colson is a guy that ain't gonna play patty cake with you. And it would not surprise me if because remember, Will McClay, last time we talked, I forget, we were doing Combine Watch. Will McClay said, they said, hey, Will, what does Zimmer want? Zimmer said, hey, man, he wants to get bigger and he wants to get more physical at defensive tackle and at linebacker.
And that in those two positions.
Junior Colson, man, that's bigger and more physical.
And I want to stay there for 1 second, Scott.
Yeah, let's do it.
And because there's another guy that we wrote a star by in my honorable mentions, that if we don't go back early and he's hanging around, bigger, physical. The best thing about having Will McClay, and I know how the fan base feels right now, the best thing about having Will McClay, because scouts, and this is the part where I think you and Vach, and I'm not just shouting out my guys, but there's a difference between scouting and coaching and marrying the two. Scouts look for traits. They look for that one pass that quarterback threw. He can do that again, right? That one time that defensive end got a sack, he can do that again. Coaches look for attitude, will, mindset. Attitude, will, mindset. That's what coaches want. Attitude, will, mindset. And they want talent. Don't get me wrong, but they want those things first. Then a good coach will say, I can imagine this guy doing said thing in my scheme. The best thing about Will McClay is he marries that. So he's going to go to Zimmer and say, Zim, I know what you got. I know what you liked about Anthony Barr when he was coming out of UCLA. This is what said player can do for you in your scheme. I know what you like to do with your drops, your depth. And so people need to understand that's why you drafted so well. Say what you want about other teams, but the reason why they miss is because you have all these analytic guys and you have smart people and you have this, that, and the third. But if you don't have a loud enough voice in those rooms to say, hey, Mike, this guy will get in trouble in traffic. You don't want him, coach. I don't know if he's the guy. I've seen it enough. And the coaches believe that when it comes to Will. So that's very important. And so when he says, I want to be more physical at linebacker and D tackle, believe him.
Let him cook. Let him cook now. Let him cook. I said, let him cook.
What's over there cooking, man? Who was the guy in your honorable mention that you wanted to point out here, though? Was it?
I want to talk about Trevin.
Okay.
So me and Dane Brugler had a back and forth, and it wasn't really back and forth. It was just me and Dane talking, discussion. Yeah. And I said, Dane, I've listened, I've read, and I said, why did you kind of undervalue Trevin? Because Trevin did end up going to the combine and playing really good football. He tested really well.
He tested very well at the combine, for sure.
Tested very well, ran well at that size. And on film, you see a thumper, and you see a guy that plays downhill. Now, you see some really big misses, too. And I think that's what Dane was alluding to. But again, those traits mixed with his play style, Sky, is something that I think that if you don't go back early and he's staring at you in the 5th round, you'd be hard pressed not to take this guy because he's not for everybody. But you'd be hard pressed not to take this player. I just wanted to make sure that I talked about Trevor Wallace because I've been on him early. And what's happening now around draft sphere, Sky? I had this rant about with you earlier. Players and scouts love a guy, and then they wake up one morning and Marvin Harrison Jr. isn't good. And it's just like
I saw you on Twitter, man.
I just for the life of me, I'm like,
so, it's kind of like the draft version of, you live long enough to see yourself become a villain, right? It's kind of like that. But in all jokes aside, I do think draft fatigue is real. This is why I'm an advocate for speeding this whole process up. I understand money though, right? They got to milk it. They're gonna do Senior Bowl and the combine and then pro day. They make money off of all this stuff. But the sooner the draft is, the less you'll have this draft fatigue where you get bored with talking up a player like a top 5, top 10 pick, because I feel like a lot of people, they want to kind of go against the grain now, right? Look at me. I was the first one to say that so-and-so was going to bust or first one to say that this 7th round pick was going to be an all pro. So we're just now in the weeds of draft. So now it's, Maybe Marvin Harrison is the 10th best player in the draft because it sounds cool to say and whatnot. But that's being hyperbolic, right? I'm not saying that people are saying that, but you are seeing more so-and-so is better. But for me, to be fair, I know I'm going off track here. Neighbors,
No, stay here. This is good.
Neighbors and Harrison, and those two, I think, were battling back and forth. I saw a take, though, that said, don't be surprised if Brian Thomas Jr. is the first wide receiver. And I'm like, okay, we need to get the draft. We need to get the draft.
Because he was on
ridiculous now.
And he's on my first favorites, by the way.
I like him. But what are we doing? What scout, what team is taking him over Neighbors and over even the Dunza, but Neighbors or Marvin Harrison Jr.? Come on.
Well, and people have just completely talked Keon Coleman out of the first round, which is fine. Hey, you have problems with this separation. I'm sticking in there with Coleman. I do think
Keon Coleman is an acquired taste for people.
And that's fine. And that's the beauty. And you know what? That's the beauty of coaching. Because there's going to be a coach out there who looks at Keon Coleman the same way that Slowick looks at Nico Collins and says, hey, on these routes, he can win. Let's spam these routes.
Yes. And that's what we brought up, Foots, when we were talking about the route running thing. I said, well, you gotta understand, he's 6'4", 230 pounds, right? 230, something like that?
Yeah, he's a big boy. 230, 225.
Okay, so he's how many six?
He's the biggest receiver in this draft and the most physically imposing, and I'm okay with that.
This is an honest question. How many 6'4" wide receivers are going down in the National Football League right now as these ridiculous route runners? Serious question.
Yeah, but like we, the funny thing about
ball?
That, there you go. Like, what's his catch radius like? What's he like in the red zone? Check. What's he like after the catch? Check. Amazing blocker that nobody wants to talk about. Just bullies DBs. Go watch him block Nate Wiggins. Check. So I'm just like, really? And in the Marvin Harrison Jr. thing, I'm like, so Kyle McCord, who just transferred. This is why I said some of these guys. They watch college football and they watch this film and they watch the stuff late. See, I put out first favorites in November while the season was still going on, college football. So I'm literally watching games and watching and getting data. And I'm not saying I'm right about all. Marshawn Lloyd is on there on my first favorites. The thing about it is, Sky, is okay. You're finding reasons to like a guy after games are played. I lived this. I watched the Maryland game where Kyle McCord couldn't throw a 5 and out. That's the reason he just transferred. But we're not gonna hold, but we're not gonna hold that. We're not gonna hold that against Marvin Harrison. We're gonna say, oh, Marvin Harrison Jr., he doesn't separate. What are we doing? Marvin Harrison, 6'3", a 4'3" guy. Best hands, best tracking ability, literally the best receiver I've scouted since Julio Jones. But today, March 8th or whatever, March 19th, he's not better than Malik Neighbors. Who I like Malik Neighbors. I don't like doing this to players because now you're forcing me to pick a side when I don't want to. Malik Neighbors is for everybody. Isn't for everybody. Marvin Harris is for everybody. He's that good. Like, and this is what kills me about when people say separation. Hey, Scott, let me ask you a question. How much really and truthfully did Randy Moss separate?
Moss is an animal, bro. He separated with his deep speed.
Bro, you threw him the ball and he came down with it because he was bigger than most corners. He was faster than most corners. And oh, by the way, he had great balance. He was a freak with his balance.
He was a deer, man. He'd take 5 steps and he's running past you. So I think his separation, like you said, you know what they did with Randy? They just spammed him with his best route. Yeah, they just spammed him. They ain't tell Randy to run a bunch of rips or whips. They ain't tell Randy to run a. You know what I'm saying? They told Randy.
Yeah, Randy, go run his curl.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, look, he ain't gonna get me to say nothing bad about Randy. That's my guy.
There's no way. But, did the same thing with T.O., but today Marvin Harrison Jr. is the third-ranked receiver. In closing, thank you, Sky, for having me on the show.
My God, Foot's the king. I wonder if that's going to tee up our on the clock wide receivers. We were going to do DTs next because what happened with the Hankins thing, but we got some time to figure it out, man. But yeah, you never know what's going to happen over the next couple days, and then obviously know personally what could happen with me. But either way, I am so happy to get this thing started because free agency for the Cowboys is always a dry period. You kind of turn the page after the first week. And we got to get back into the swing of things for the draft. And this kind of gets me back into the swing of things where we start talking about your top 5 at each position. So if you are new here and you haven't seen what we do in regards to draft season, this is one of our staple segments of the draft season. It's the On the Clock series. We're starting it off today with linebacker. We'll be back next week with another one. It's something you do not want to miss, because once we get to the actual draft day, it should be me, Foots, and Vach. We're trying to put that together. Once we get back to draft day, these type of shows, I think, can get some people who aren't, as plugged in, who are more casually observing, draft prospects, because it can be overwhelming. These type of shows, I think, can help people, get the names out of some of your honorable mention guys. Cedric Gray, Trevor Wallace, Tyrus Knight. Like, these are the guys once draft day come, you're like, okay, yeah, I remember Foots, Sky, we're talking about so-and-so, and you're familiar. You understand what's going on. So make sure you guys
and shout out to you, Sky, because our hit rate from the series has been really good. So always a blessing, man. And I'm congratulations early, Sky.
Thank you, bro.
And if we got to pivot, we will, because baby Sky is on the way.
Yes,
I can't wait.
Yes, he is. Another one born into the blue and silver. I'm just hoping that he don't go through as much as I've been through over the last 30 years. So I hope it's a little better for us. That's all.
Listen, he'll be watching Junior Colson go to the Hall of Fame. We're good to go.
Junior Colson. Hey. 24th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft. The Dallas Cowboys select. Boy, if it's Junior Colson, I ain't gonna lie, I might hit you with a. I might have to hit you with it. I might have to hit you with it, bro. But no, all jokes aside, I don't think we'll see a Schoonmaker reaction this year. I just can't see them going so sideways with a pick in the first 3 rounds.
Nah.
But it is the Cowboys, so stay tuned. Stay tuned.
No way.
Appreciate you, fam.
Hey, much love to you, Sky. Thank you for having me. Chat box. Hey, you know what, Sky? I'm actually only 1 follower away from 10K on Twitter. So shout out to y'all. Shout out to you for always.
You probably got that right now.
We'll see. If we don't, I know Sky will show me some love.
100%. If you're not following Foots on Twitter, again, I feel like I say this about all y'all that I bring on this dang show. If you're not following Foots on Twitter and you cool, we're running into the smoke, make sure you go over there and follow Foots. Just make sure you come correct. That's all I'm saying. I appreciate
Much love to you, brother.
Love,
Peace.
Bro. Peace. We are doing a Survivor Madness challenge. Very different from your normal March Madness brackets, which you can still do. But I want y'all to rock with A to Z this year in doing a Survivor challenge all the way through the tournament. The winner gets a huge cash prize. Here's all you got to do. Sign up for our challenge on Splash with our link, splashsports.com/ATOZ. The entry fee, $10, man. Just $10. And the entire pot goes to the winner of the Survivor Madness Challenge. This is what you do. You pick one college basketball team to win each day of the tournament. If your team wins, you advance. But you can only pick the one team. It's just like any other Survivor challenge. The last survivor gets the money. If there's a tie, we'll split the pot. The more people that play, the more money you can win. Right now, but it can be up to $5,000+ or more, because I'm pretty sure if we get a gang of people joining, they'll open up that amount of participants to play. So sign up, splashsports.com/ATOZ. Available for Cowboy fans across the country, minus a few select states, a handful of select states.